Welcome to your in-depth monthly astrology overview and zodiac forecast for February 2025. I'm going to share some key details with you to begin with, then on screen the event chart right at the start of the month, which will provide a backdrop for the following 28 days. As influences unfold, I'll go through each of those frame by frame before sharing each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces, which you can relate to in terms of your ascendant, sun or the moon. But I want to share some very exciting news with you. A new website is set to be launched by the end of January. The existing website is a little bit dated, to be honest. It has been very successful. We have done as much as 2.5–3 million views a month. But we're going to bring in lots of new features which will make it, I feel, a much more engaging experience. But to celebrate that, I'm also giving you the opportunity to have some very special ways of gaining more insights into astrology and your personal situation. If you don't know your natal chart, you can get your free natal chart, but also understand what the big three are in that natal chart. So that's the sun, the ascendant and the moon. But also my free natal chart is very detailed. It will give you all the planetary positions and houses of all the other planets beyond those big three. It's really a great opportunity. And also, as you know, I've promoted my personal horoscope reports for some time at 30% off. Well, I'm giving you the opportunity to get them half price from now on. And if you want something a bit different from the packages, for example, you wanted your 12-month transits because you know your natal chart, but you'd like to get a free draconic chart, well, you can do that. So it's literally buy one, get one free from now on. Please see the link below for more on that free natal chart, but also my star choice range. Very exciting opportunity for you. Now, if you'd like to speak to me directly, one-to-one, that's still the main part of my role. Please see my testimonials below to check out what people say. If you'd like to get your free daily horoscope fired to your device each morning, please check out the link below for that too. So, if you're new to my channel, thank you so much for joining us. This is very much a community. If you have any thoughts, please do share them. If you're a regular visitor but have yet to sub, please help the channel to thrive. Click that sub button, but also the bell notification symbol. And please like the video too. That sends a signal to YouTube as well. Now, at the very start of this month, on the screen now, I'm showing the event chart. And we can see that there is a gathering of influences in the sign of Aquarius, but also in the sign of Pisces. And the big takeout of this month, ironically, is that though we start with that Aquarius season, and we do have a lot of players in Pisces at the start of February too, it's going to be by the 18th of the month that Pisces season really kicks in, because that's when the sun moves into Pisces, but also on the 24th, Mars in the water sign of Cancer, that goes direct. It went retrograde on the 6th of December at 6 degrees in Leo. So it's retraced its steps by 19 degrees. So that brings a much more empathetic energy into play towards the end of this month. But did you know, right at the start of this month, Venus, which is exalted in Pisces, aligns with the North Node and Neptune. That can be a quite mystical but also magical opportunity to connect to someone in a very spiritual or even a deeply romantic way. But the North Node will be applying to Neptune for the whole of February. It depends on where we are in our life journey. If you're someone who's been pretty resistant to healing, natural approaches, the more spiritual dimension, this can be your chance to embrace those things in a really meaningful way. If you're someone with a talent for tripping the light, fantastic. It's all there for us all. But I think it is important too to keep one foot on terra firma. Now, please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs from Aries through to Pisces. And you can relate to these in terms of your ascendant, sun or the moon. What's the difference? Well, the ascendant is entirely appropriate if you know your natal chart well, but particularly the positions of your house cusps, because where the planets are around in their array, your personal natal chart, that's particularly influential. But all of us can always gain some kind of insight from tuning into the position of the sun, but especially the house that it is in that natal chart, because that gives us the heart of the matter. And as I mentioned before, if you don't know your natal chart, you can download it for free and it will be in your email within seconds. It's not one of these free charts that flashes up on the screen, doesn't really say too much, it's hard to engage with, you can't download it. This is absolutely amazing. So please see the link below, or you can click on the link above my left shoulder and go to the appropriate page there. But the position of the moon is very much about our more empathetic responses to situations. They all have a different role. The ascendant is how we appear to others, it's how we assimilate information, can be about our bodies to some degree. The first house is a very Aries type energy. The sun at the heart of us, in a way, is our Leo potential, where we can really glow up and show people just where we can shine and be very charismatic. And the moon, as I mentioned, very much about how we feel about things. So that's the difference. But if you don't know your natal chart, please check out that free opportunity. And just to say again, if you've yet to watch your year 2025 deep dive video forecast, please see the link beneath this video. Now, if I'm promoting the horoscopes at 30% off there, don't worry, when you go to the store, if you choose to buy one, it will be buy one, get one free, or half price if you go for the ready-made packages. So Aries, on the screen now is your event chart right at the start of the month, and as ever we need to be mindful of the sun and of the moon, the two luminaries. Now they're in a semi-sextile, which is pretty useful. It's exactly 30 degrees. In this case it's about 32, but still very potent. The sun in the sign of Aquarius is asking you to think about your future, but also to think about your connections. Also Mercury, which some astrologers say is exalted in the sign of Aquarius, is pretty close to the sun, and in fact through the first phase of this month they are going to be closely aligned. We're going to have a GEMINI, which occurs on the 9th. So thinking clearly about our future is a big part of what we're being urged to do. Also the planet of optimism, Jupiter, which has been going backwards since October, that goes direct in a very chatty part of your horoscope and is forging a sensational angle to the sun as February begins. But it is in a right angle to the moon. So it's going to be important, therefore, to listen to your senses, because it's not just the moon that's in Pisces. Saturn continues there. We have Venus coming to the end of its journey, but in that quite exquisite relationship with Neptune and the North Node. So you could be thinking about your alliances at the start of this month, Aries, but also you could feel very nostalgic. If you decide to get together with a group of old friends from college, or who you used to work with, or who you used to live around, it wouldn't be a surprise at all. But generally speaking, the opportunity to think more clearly is going to accelerate by the 4th of this month, not least because Venus, the planet of relating, moves forwards and moves into your sign. Why is that so exciting? Well, Venus is technically debilitated in Aries, but I personally always like people who've got Venus in Aries, because they're people who desire something and then make something happen to try to get it. Whereas Venus can be a more ponderous influence through Taurus. It can settle, whereas through the sign of Libra, it can be a little bit disinclined to upset the status quo. But Venus in Aries wants to make things happen. So the other part of that collective in Pisces at the start of this month is, if you feel someone doesn't fit into your long-term plan, you could be deciding to actually bring something to a close, but you get an opportunity, if you are seeking closure, to do it in as peaceful and, if you like, as spiritual a way as possible. You know, try not to be antagonistic. If something isn't for you for the long term, and it isn't for them as well, just be philosophical about it. But a great opportunity for you to think about the people you can network with, who you do trust, who you do feel a sense of kinship with, but also to differentiate with the people you're not quite so sure of. And because the moon is very close to Saturn at the start of this month, if there are any weak links around your connections, the chances are you are going to want to wheedle them out. Now you can see that Chiron is in your sign, and it is squaring Mars. Mars, of course, is your ruler, so that's a very significant influence in your personal return for the start of February. And that's saying to you that maybe you're going to be a bit feistier about asserting your individual rights and boundaries. If that's the case, then why not indeed? But in week 2, we do have the full moon, and the full moon is in Leo, your sister fire sign, but it does forge, along with the sun, a T-square to the disruptive energies of Uranus. But there's an interesting thing about Uranus at the start of this month, because at the start of January, it's squared up with Venus. At the start of February, they're in a very good alliance. If there's someone you can network with, or you feel a hunch towards perhaps collaborating with, that could turn out to be beneficial for you. But by the time of the full moon, you may find yourself having to make some key decisions. You can't keep all of the people happy all of the time, Aries. That's what that full moon is telling you. It's telling you to be in touch with your values. That will guide you towards who you should be spending time with, romantically or in terms of your social situation. But by the 18th, the sun does move out of Aquarius and dives deep into the sign of Pisces, because Pisces is the 12th zodiac sign. And because we also have Mercury having moved into that area on the 14th, Mercury is detrimented in Pisces. And so, very important, particularly from the 23rd to the 27th, there may be something that gets revealed as Mercury aligns with Saturn that could be something of an uncomfortable truth. 12th house energy is sometimes the part of life that we're not so keen to look at. It can be our insecurities, our vulnerabilities, but it also can, in traditional astrology, be those so-called secret enemies. So whether it's professionally or whether it is in terms of that circle of friends, that I feel right from the start of this month, you are being asked to think very carefully about who's worthy of you and who you want to be with. That is a theme for the whole month. But by the 24th, when Mars, your ruler, does go direct, and the great news is it will be coming back to the sign of Leo on the 18th of April. So you've got that to look forward to, and that will be really dynamic. But that's going to take a little bit of the pressure off. And also the new moon, which occurs on the 28th in the sign of Pisces, is forging a square to the ruler of that sign, traditionally Jupiter. And I think all of that really is saying to you, particularly in the last 2 days, with the sun squaring up to Jupiter as February comes to a close, that when it comes to the psychological part of your situation and your communications, it's important to just be a little bit more guarded. You have a reputation of being a very galvanizing force, an exciting person to be around. But this is one of those months which is asking you to be selective and perhaps also sift out of your situation who is no longer worthy of you. But if you want to embrace healing, the spiritual domain in a much greater way, or spend time with people that are very sincere and have some kind of empathy or connection with you that you can just instinctively feel, that's going to be a great decision. Have a great month in February, Aries. And if you've yet to watch your year 2025 deep dive video forecast, please see the link below for more. Discover your personal natal horoscope for absolutely free, including the big three of the Ascendant, Sun and the Moon, and the houses they're located in, as well as all the other planetary positions, by downloading your chart by clicking the link underneath this video. Or you can take advantage of my special star choice range, where you buy one horoscope and get the second horoscope free. Please see below for more for that too. Welcome Taurus to your February monthly forecast for the Ascendant, the Sun or the Moon. On the screen now, I'm showing your event chart right at the start of the month. As ever, let's take a look at the position of the Sun and the Moon. So the Sun for you is right at the top of the chart, pretty close to Mercury, and in fact the Sun and Mercury will be collaborating at the start of this month. So if you are thinking about having some interviews, doing a presentation, applying for a job, setting your goals high when it comes to your ambitions, that's a wonderful combination. And that's because Mercury is the ruling planet of the second decan of Aquarius, and the two are going to come into an exact conjunction, a cazimi, on the 9th. So a great chance for you to get really clearer about what you want in terms of those key ambitions. But of course we need to be mindful of the role of the Moon. The Moon's in your sector of friendship, but it's pretty close to Saturn, and Saturn's been bringing, I think, potentially some tough old lessons over the last couple of years when it comes to certain players in your world. But the interesting thing about this month is I feel that your friendship sector and your social sectors can actually be rejuvenated. But if there are still any weak links, they could yet be teased out. But there are going to be some new exciting people entering your circle, or you're going to become much more conscious of certain ways of approaching life, perhaps even to do with your professional aspirations, that just seem much more in keeping with the person you are becoming. But of course we have to be conscious of your ruler Venus too, and Venus starts this month in your 11th house, but very close to the mystical Neptune, but also the point of destiny. If there is someone you encounter, especially at the start of February, it may be almost like a fated connection, and it doesn't have to be romantic, because some of the people you may have felt have not matched your expectations over the last couple of years may have been through your work, but bizarrely, it could be through your professional or worldly connections that these new players develop for you, and that can be very exciting. Also, Uranus continuing its journey in your sign, but is now in direct motion. If you recall, Uranus went direct on the 30th of January. So the link with Venus at the start of this month suggests that if you do have that connection with someone, it can happen very fast indeed. But if there is still that person who isn't quite working for you, they could be teased out from the 4th, because on that day your ruler Venus moves into your 12th house, which can be a period of reflection. But on the same day, Jupiter, the planet of opportunity, ends its retrograde, which for you has been in the sector of everyday money. If you have been finding that some of your hopes for the future have felt challenged since the end of last year, it wouldn't be a surprise because of the square between Jupiter in its retrograde, but also with Saturn. Now that peaked on the 24th of December last year, but it was very potent through the first 2 weeks of the new year. And to be honest, because it was involved in your solar return for 25, it may be something you need to be conscious of for the whole of the year. In other words, have realistic expectations when it comes to money that is linked in any way to a group activity, or perhaps if you're a more idealistic type of Taurus. That said, we have a full moon which occurs on the 12th, and it's a full moon which can see you needing to balance that classic dilemma for many of us these days, work life, because the cluster of energy at the start of this month in Aquarius is very much about work. Pluto's going to be pushing you for some years to come to transform that part of your situation, but how you feel about it, very much to do with the position of the full moon in Leo, is critical to the equation. And because Uranus in your sign is T-square in both positions, it may feel that your options are either limited, or perhaps you've got almost too many and you don't quite know which to choose. But if you do feel in some ways penned in by the demands of family life or older relatives, or your work situation doesn't seem to give you enough time to rest and recover, or enough independence to do what you need to do, it could create a little bit of resentment. The good news, however, is that on the 14th, Mercury moves into Pisces. Now, technically it's debilitated here, but for you, this can get you chatting, and even if Venus in some ways is seeing you much more conscious of who's not quite as invested in you as you would like, as Mercury moves to join up with Saturn from the 23rd to the 27th, you will get much clearer about that long-term plan. That's also boosted from the 18th as the Sun makes its way into Pisces for pretty well the last 10 days of this month. We also have Mars, the planet of desire, going direct. Now, it has been in retrograde for you in the part of your chart to do with quick communications since the 6th of January. If you have found that travel, particularly local travel, has been frustrating, or you've had some exasperating conversations with people, wouldn't be a complete surprise. But on the 28th, a glorious new moon in the sign of Pisces suggests that all these things that you've been working through over the last couple of years, you can now start to truly make sense of what they've really meant to you. And because Jupiter, the ruler of Pisces, is in a square to the new moon, it's kind of saying to you, it is still important not to think or expect too much from situations, but that doesn't mean to say you shouldn't be positive and optimistic. They're not the same things. If we have an unrealistic expectation, we're going to end up being disappointed. And that may be Neptune's combination with the North Node, which does provide the backdrop spine of the whole of this month. But being an earth sign, being someone who has a good appreciation of resources, the value of things, and often of money, even if in your weaker moments you can be tempted to splash out on anything with the slightest hint of luxury, I feel that essentially this month is very much about expanding your spiritual dimension and linking that to the people you're spending time with, but also your long-term plan, but at the same time not letting that be pulverized by reality, but at the same time also not getting swept away on a dream which is not achievable. Have a great month, Taurus. If you've yet to watch your year 2025 deep dive video, please see the link below for more. Discover your personal natal horoscope for absolutely free, including the big three of the ascendant, sun and the moon, and the houses they're located in, as well as all the other planetary positions, by downloading your chart by clicking the link underneath this video. Or you can take advantage of my special Star Choice range where you buy one horoscope and get the second horoscope free. Please see below for more for that too. Gemini, I'm showing your February 2024 event chart on the screen now. As ever, we need to be mindful of your ruler Mercury, and that's in your sister air sign of Aquarius. In fact, it's going to be moving closer to the sun as the month unfolds, and on the 9th they come into an exact unison known as a cazimi, or a superior conjunction, because Mercury is not in retrograde. This gives an opportunity for you to raise the profile of anything that you have knowledge around in a very powerful and also passionate way. But right at the start of the month, Jupiter, the planet of opportunity, which has been tracking backwards in your sign, forges an amazing link to the sun for the first 3 days. So I feel that you can burst into this new month in very good form indeed, which is truly exciting. Also, there is a very mesmeric link between Venus, the North Node, and also Neptune right at the start of this month. If you are someone who works in some kind of healing industry, you're a life coach, you're a psychic, you're someone who's very caring, perhaps you work in some kind of medical environment, the compassion that you show to people can be something that gives you a personal reward, particularly at the start of this month. But if you are a creative, that opportunity to dazzle people with the array of your talents is certainly magnified as February begins, not least because Venus, the planet of relating but also of money, moves into the part of your chart to do with your connections to others, the sign of Aries. You do have Chiron in that area, and Chiron is in a clash with Mars at the start of this month. It's possible that there could be an opportunity that comes up for you, particularly financially, and you may find yourself having to make some key decisions about whether it's the right thing for you in terms of your long-term future. But that brings us to the full moon, which occurs across your axis of communication on the 12th. But as it does, so Uranus, the planet of the unexpected, of electric energy, does intersect both positions. Something could come into the open over the following 2 weeks. It may be something that you decide to share, which is rather sensitive, perhaps even controversial, or maybe someone's going to hold you to account for something that you said in the past or perhaps done. And in that sense, it is going to be important to choose what you say with a degree of care through that part of the month. But on the 14th, your ruler Mercury moves into the sign of Pisces. Technically debilitated, but for you this is the 10th house. The 10th house is how we can connect to the wider world, but also perhaps raise our profile professionally. If you are looking for a job, you're going to find yourself more proactive. But equally, it's also possible that you may consider retraining or adapting past skills in a new and fresh way. Now, the committee that's waiting to receive Mercury does include Saturn, and the two are going to come into a conjunction later in the month, but not before the Sun also rises to the top of your chart on the 18th. This is a great chance for you to take your talents and skills more seriously and to be more ambitious. But of course, everybody's ambitions are different. Some people's are more to do with the professional realm, others to do with their interest. Some people it may be to do with their grandchildren or their hobbies. It just depends what inspires you, but your desire to be much more thrust in and active is certainly increased. But then Mercury aligns to Saturn. If there is any complexities around your professional life, it's possible that someone could be scrutinizing your approach in quite a powerful way. So it's important from the 23rd to the 27th to just be conscious of that. However, Mars, which had been in retrograde since the 6th of December and from the 6th of January in the sign of Cancer for you, everyday money, that goes direct on the 24th. There could be a correlation. Perhaps the combination of Mercury and Saturn helps you to frame something that's important to you in a way that other people take very seriously. Because Saturn, although it has a difficult reputation, can often coincide when we get an opportunity, particularly if we've really worked for it. And because Mercury can be about a deal, and with Mars going direct, it could be the chance to seize a golden prize. And in fact, on the 28th, your opportunities for progress around whatever those ambitions may be is boosted some more by the Pisces new moon. But it is squaring up to Jupiter in your sign. So it's important that if you are going for a new position or you're doing a presentation, that what you say you can do, you can deliver on. So overconfidence could be a little bit of a trap that you could fall into as the month draws to a close. It's been a pleasure being with you, Gemini. Have a great February. If you've yet to check out your year 2025 deep dive video forecast, please see the link beneath this video. Discover your personal natal horoscope for absolutely free, including the big three of the ascendant, sun and the moon, and the houses they're located in, as well as all the other planetary positions, by downloading your chart by clicking the link underneath this video. Or you can take advantage of my special star choice range, where you buy one horoscope and get the second horoscope free. Please see below for more for that too. Cancer, your February 2025 forecast on the screen now is your event chart right at the start of the month. Now, your ruler, the moon, very close to the strict energies of Saturn as we go into this month, in the part of your situation to do with higher knowledge, travel, contracts, and potentially where we want to expand or liberate ourselves. So with Saturn there, maybe you're going to feel somewhat constrained, or will you? Because if we look at Venus and its conjunction with the North Node, but also with Neptune right at the start of the month too, that suggests you can expand your situation. There is going to be an opportunity, but you need to be really sure that it's right for you. There may be some constraints, there may be some hoops you do need to jump through, but there's still an opportunity. But also you can see the collective in the sign of Aquarius, which is house 8, very much to do with deep transformations. In a more practical context, can be about business, particularly with Mercury in the mix. Mercury's connecting to the Sun, and they're going to come into a conjunction on the 9th, a cazimi. If you are someone who's trying to do something more enterprising, that's a very special set of influences. So Pluto's pushing you to evolve and change, but the way you do it is going to require perhaps a new knowledge, perhaps talking to people, sharing your ideas, perhaps even some travel, maybe some marketing, and that's the energy that's emerging in the sign of Pisces. And as I say, it's all about Saturn. Saturn's asking you to make sure that you're scrutinizing what you're about to say or share in a way which is going to be beneficial for you. But on the 4th, Venus, the planet of relating, but critically of money, rises to the top of your chart. Now, you can be a very effective communicator because you listen to atmospheres. So that helps you to lean in to situations based on your instincts. But it's possible that your connections, particularly with someone influential, may make it a case of who as much as what you know. Also, in terms of your romantic situation, if it is all going swimmingly, this could be an opportunity to take that next step towards a greater and more invested commitment. But also Jupiter, the planet of growth, which has been retracing its steps for 4 months, ends its retrograde on the 4th too. Now, Jupiter is tucked up in your 12th house, so it's been asking you since late May last year to expand your spiritual understanding of situations, but it does start this month still in a broad square with Saturn, And of course, they did reach a peak on the 24th of December last year and through the first half of January this year. So it's possible that if there is something that you're discussing and it has got some kind of legalistic dimension, that could in some ways leave you feeling a bit bereft, a little bit concerned, despite the fact that Jupiter does start to go forwards. The full moon that we have across the 12th in terms of your 2nd and 8th house axis, the 2nd house is where the moon is really very much to do with balancing the books. It's just that Uranus intersects both positions of the sun and the moon, suggesting that maybe you don't want to balance the books. You could still feel much more impulsive when it comes to splashing out. That said, Mercury, the planet of communication, moves from that part of your chart that's to do with the deep understanding, whether it is psychological research or it is actually doing some market research, but that moves from Aquarius at the middle of the month and into Pisces. So that plan to widen your mode of being can certainly be given a boost by that, and even more so from the 18th when the sun moves to Pisces as well. Now, of course, that shares your water triplicity. So that desire at the start of the month to be a little bit more experimental, perhaps to think about where you might travel. You may even have booked something earlier in the month, but in the latter part of this month, there is the chance to actually make that happen, particularly from the 24th, when Mars in your sign ends its retrograde. Since the 6th of January, Mars's retrograde in your sign has seen it go from 0 degrees Leo all the way back to 17 degrees in your sign. So it's in 13 degrees. But it does actually forge a terrific link with Mercury across the 22nd to the 25th of this month. And you could find yourself really seizing centre stage and being very much a leader, particularly if it is some kind of travel or higher educational opportunity. So you can find yourself being a lot more dynamic, not because you're not trying to be dynamic earlier in the month, but the planets just conspire to ease things for you towards the end of February, and by the 28th with the new moon, which does link up to Jupiter, that chance to really do something that's very exciting is really going to present itself. Your motivation can be very high. You could find yourself listening to your instincts within this. Not that that's particularly new. That's the big part of your nature that's so strong, as I mentioned before. But that part of you is amplified by the energy of Jupiter as the month comes to a close. So the sun squares with Jupiter, that's very much part of that last day new moon in the sign of Pisces. So whether it is about doing something more spontaneous, breaking down your life away from more set routines, deciding to get in touch with someone you haven't seen for a while, perhaps even book some kind of weekend away or a longer vacation, or if you have always thought that you've got more learning that you want to do, or you've got skills and talents you want to share with someone else, a great opportunity to think about publishing if you love writing, or there's something you'd like to journal through a blog. All of those opportunities can be amplified as this month draws to a close. Have a great February, Cancer, and if you've yet to watch your year 2025 deep dive video forecast, please see the link beneath this video. Discover your personal natal horoscope for absolutely free, including the big three of the ascendant, sun and the moon, and the houses they're located in, as well as all the other planetary positions, by downloading your chart by clicking the link underneath this video. Or you can take advantage of my special star choice range, where you buy one horoscope and get the second horoscope free. Please see below for more for that too. So Leo, your February 2024 forecast on the screen now is your event chart, that big cluster in house 7, the sign of Aquarius. Now, of course, your ruler is the sun, and that's where the sun is. But it forges a magnificent link to Jupiter, the planet of opportunity. Now, Jupiter has been retracing its steps for 4 months, but you can see in Gemini the link between the Sun and Jupiter is really excellent. It's known as a trine. The element of air is at the heart of this, so it's about communication. Now, Jupiter is going to go direct on the 4th, but also Venus, the planet of relating, moves into the part of your chart to do with higher truths, but also liberty, also on the 4th. So all of that at the start of this month is very dynamic in terms of your connections to particular people. Also Mercury, the planet of talk and thought, of communication, very close to the Sun at the start of the month. And by the 9th, they come into an exact unison, a cazimi. This sees the Sun glow up, the natural quick wits of Mercury. But Mercury in the 7th house gives us an opportunity to be a bit more detached. If people see things from a different viewpoint to us, it helps us to just basically accept that that's how it is for them, so we can be a little bit more dispassionate. But the Sun does also forge a semi-sextile to the Moon at the start of this month, and the Moon is in a more complex area. That semi-sextile is great for trying to understand the deeper ramifications of any connection, but it's the location of Saturn so close to the Moon at the start of this month which is particularly influential, because as the Moon moves forwards, and obviously it moves very rapidly, it's connecting to Saturn almost immediately. Now, the 8th house is very complex. It can be where we transform. It's also where we can be most invested. It can be where we're most devoted. It can be about shared finance, long-term financial planning and investments. But it also can be about alimony, divorce, breakups, breakdown, when things come to an end. It can also be to do with things like legacies, inheritances, and stuff like that. So because of Saturn's more restraining energies, and because the Moon is about how we feel about things, if you're not feeling the mood music from Jupiter's link to the Sun at the start of this month, and Venus moving into your sister fire sign of Aries, it's possible that there's something more complex that you are having to negotiate and work your way through. But later into the sign of Pisces, you can see that Venus, the planet of relating but also of money, is in an exquisite link with Neptune and also with the North Node. This could be a time of rebirth. Even if a relationship has struggled, it all depends on how much each person wants to own how it perhaps reached this impasse. And because Venus moving into Aries, although technically debilitated, can be a truth bringer, if there is a preparedness to own things and be open to change, perhaps through analysis, counselling, then there could be some kind of transformation which may be actually really uplifting. But it just depends on each unique situation, because Mars, the planet of desire, is tucked away still in the 12th house as this month begins, and since the 6th of January it may have brought, along with from the early part of September through till the 6th of December, it may have been during that period that you became more aware that something wasn't quite working as you would like around any kind of relationship, be it professional, family, connection with a friend, or perhaps in a more intimate partnership. And Mars starts this month in a square with Chiron. Chiron is where we can show our superpower, but in this moving chart, it's really asking us all in the sign of Aries to qualify our individuality, our identity, if you like. And maybe is because Mars has been in the 12th house, some stuff's come up that has been painful to process. Maybe stuff that is linked to the past, but could be to do with someone not being quite as open and honest and committed as they could be. But you can see that Jupiter, as much as it forges one of astrology's best links in the trine with the Sun at the start of this month, it is squaring up with the Moon, and that suggests you shouldn't be too generous if something hasn't worked out well. So it's only if the other person is really prepared to pitch all in and try to move forwards should you really consider that option. But by the 4th, that move of Venus into Aries could be very exciting if you are single, because it is also going to be linking back to the position of Pluto. So some kind of big transformation around a relationship could occur, and it may be through travel. You may travel with a friend, but during that travel there could be some kind of very intense but very exciting experience around someone that you meet. On the 12th, however, there is the full moon in your sign. Now this is where you need to balance what you need for you against what you want to give to someone else and what they expect from you. And Uranus, the planet of surprises but also of rebellion, is in a T-square with both positions, suggesting that if you have anyone feeding into this equation, could be advice givers, could be stakeholders such as parents who have a different viewpoint or don't quite understand things as you do, their input could be actually very disruptive. Or maybe it's work makes it more difficult to balance what you really need to work on within this sensitive phase. The 14th, however, sees Mercury move out of Aquarius and dive deep into the aquatic Pisces. Now Mercury's not at its best here because Mercury likes precision and clarity, and the watery Pisces can dimulate that. But for you, it could be an opportunity to turn up the collar on your detective's coat and really start to think very, very deeply and process some of the information that you've been absorbing of late. But the 18th sees the Sun joining up with Mercury, and if there is going to be a period when something is coming to a natural close, just be aware that that will be followed by a new beginning. That's the cycle of life. And however painful it is when we go through these very, very difficult times, that's the thing to remember. There will be a spring again. There will be a new beginning. But it's possible that if you're someone who really likes the steadiness and the regularity of an existing relationship, that you may be feeling a little bit conflicted. Being a fixed sign, Leos have a surprising adherence to connections with somebody else. It's not always as easy to break free as an individual as people might think for you. That said, with Mars going direct on the 24th, some of the soul searching or the ups and downs around your emotions that have been so prevalent since the 6th of January this year, those are going to ease. And also there's a great link between Mars and Mercury, suggesting you could have a very powerful heart-to-heart at this stage of the month. Then as February comes to a close, we have a new moon in the sign of Pisces, but it is going to square up to its ruler, traditionally, of Jupiter. And for you, that's your 11th house. But that's saying to you, don't be too generous, particularly if someone has been possessive or controlling or manipulative or dishonest. Just remember that Jupiter, being free of the retrograde and free of the right angle to Saturn that it did have for the first 2 weeks of the year and towards the end of year 2024, you have an opportunity to think more dynamically about your long-term plan. Jupiter's in the part of your chart to do with your connections, your alliances, and that energy in the sign of Aquarius, particularly Pluto and the Sun at the start of this month, does suggest some new, exciting characters are coming your way. But there may be a shake-up around something that's sustained itself for a very long time. It either needs to reincarnate or perhaps come to a natural close. Have a great February Leo, and if you've yet to watch your year 2025 deep dive video forecast, please see the link beneath this video. Discover your personal natal horoscope for absolutely free, including the big three of the ascendant, sun and the moon, and the houses they're located in, as well as all the other planetary positions, by downloading your chart by clicking the link underneath this video. Or you can take advantage of my special star choice range, where you buy one horoscope and get the second horoscope free. Please see below for more for that too. Welcome Virgo to your in-depth monthly forecast for February 2024. On the screen now is your event chart right at the start of the month. We need to be mindful of your ruler Mercury. And Mercury starts the month for you in a very practical and precise location, which really calls out and echoes your appreciation of order, efficiency, being conscious of the details and being discriminating. You can also see that Mercury is pretty close to the Sun. So that part of your chart, which is to do with your life structure, really is very much to the fore as you make your way into the month. Not least that Pluto is here now for the long term. But look at the angle to Jupiter from the Sun. Jupiter's been at the top of your chart since the end of May last year. Now it has been retracing its steps for the last 4 months. If you have been feeling a little bit unsure around your professional interactions, especially relationships, it wouldn't really be a surprise, particularly with Saturn squaring up to Jupiter at the end of last year and also in the summer of last year, but also the first 2 weeks of this year too. So there may have been some challenges. And of course, Mars started this year in your 12th house, which can provoke some insecurities, to be honest, in terms of how colleagues feel about us. Mars now is in a very democratic part of your situation and is forging an excellent link with the aforementioned Saturn. So now you have a chance to collaborate well with people, but if you are applying for a job, that link between the Sun and Jupiter at the start of the month could present an opportunity which absolutely delights you. But look at the position of the moon, because that's very close to Saturn. And as much as this opportunity may manifest, there could be something that comes with it. For example, it could be a role where you're closely scrutinized. You don't have so much personal freedom. It may be that there are very clear parameters to work within, but that might not suit you, particularly if you're more of an entrepreneurial type of Virgo. And also Venus, the planet of relating, like the position of the moon and Saturn, is in an excellent part of your chart, but in a mesmeric connection with Neptune and also the North Node. Now Venus connects to those two for the first few days of this month, but look at the position of Uranus. Uranus over the last few years has been urging you to do something different, to change things up. So if there is someone you can collaborate with at the start of this month, as Uranus links so well with Venus, who is fresh, who is exciting, who is prepared to do something in a more novel way, that could really call out to you. So as much as there is this professional opportunity, it needs to work for you at a relationship level too. Now, if your interest is much more romantic, that combination of the moon and Saturn does suggest that there may be the need to insert a firmer boundary, either by you or perhaps someone else feels they need to do that or say how they feel towards yourself. But by the 4th, Venus moves on, going for you into the 8th house. Now, if you are a more entrepreneurial Virgo, this could be a sign of some developing opportunities which could be good for you financially. If you are in a steady relationship, your partner could have some good news too. But on the same day, Jupiter ends that retrograde. That's something for us all to celebrate. And for you, because it is in that sector of how you connect to the world, right through to the 9th of June, you may have some kind of breakthrough which could prove to be really exciting. That said, the 12th sees a full moon. A full moon in a very tender part of your chart. If you are in an environment professionally where there is some backbiting, where there are some politics, where people do seem to be a little bit picky about small issues, that desire that Uranus has been flagging to you to have more space and freedom could become very strong over the following couple of weeks. But because Mercury meets with the Sun exactly on the 9th, that will give you a chance to really cut through to understand what your options are and how you might go forwards. In fact, on the 14th, even if there has been some brittle tensions and things have felt very tense, Mercury moving into your opposite side could yet trigger some kind of solution, or at least a more collaborative approach. That's going to be boosted furthermore from the 18th with the Sun moving into Pisces. We really do have Pisces season now. Also, Mars goes direct on the 24th, having started its retrograde on the 6th of December. If things have felt bogged down since then, this change will really give you a sense of traction, not least that Mars arcs brilliantly to Mercury in your sector of relating. The people you collaborate with, therefore, this month are set to be very important. However, if you are having an interview, doing a presentation, or even meeting a potential love interest as the month draws to a close, it's really important not to try too hard. The new moon on the 28th is squaring up with Jupiter. When that happens, it can make us super optimistic, but it's also important to be super realistic. But that's where you and your tendency to keep your feet very much on terra firma are going to give you an advantage. Have a great month. Discover your personal natal horoscope for absolutely free, including the big three of the ascendant, sun and the moon, and the houses they're located in, as well as all the other planetary positions, by downloading your chart by clicking the link underneath this video. Or you can take advantage of my special star choice range where you buy one horoscope and get the second horoscope free. Please see below for more for that too. Welcome Libra to your in-depth monthly forecast for February 2024. On the screen now is your event chart right at the start of February, which will provide a backdrop for the whole month. We need to focus on your ruler Venus. It's in the sign of Pisces where she really shines. She can be very romantic here, but this is your sector of commitments, responsibilities and obligations. But if you recall, at the start of January, Venus was in the sign of Aquarius. Brilliant for you, very romantic location, but was conflicted by Uranus, the planet of freedom. If a relationship got a bit edgy or you needed to have some more space from someone, it wouldn't be a surprise. Now you have an opportunity to collaborate with them. But the key is trying to find the ways that work for you both. But when it comes to marshalling your money, which Venus can be about, or applying for jobs, it is going to be important to take the less trodden path. So if you are someone who tends to be a little bit more conservative in your approach, Uranus's great link to Venus, the sextile, is really saying dare to be different. But also at the start of this month, the Sun in your sister water sign of Aquarius links very helpfully to Jupiter. Jupiter's the planet of growth, optimism, good fortune, in traditional astrology known as the greater benefit, Venus the lesser. But Jupiter has been retracing his steps for 4 months in a part of your chart to do with growth, to do with travel, to do with contracts. If things just haven't been seeming to move for you, the Sun's link to Jupiter at the start of this month can trigger a more accelerated and exciting period. Not least that Jupiter comes out of its retrograde on the 4th, but also on the same day, Venus moves into your opposite sign, which could be really magical for your relationships over the next 4 weeks. But just before she does say au revoir to the sign of Pisces, she is linking in a very mesmeric way to both Neptune and also the North Node. If you have been very, very dedicated, particularly over the last year since 2012 when Neptune has occupied Pisces, and especially around your work, and if you work in a sector where sacrifice and really helping people in a genuine way hasn't always gained you particular amount of acknowledgement or financial enrichment, you could find that something happens that just sees you celebrated, some kind of magical event. Maybe someone's going to let you know how much they appreciate you, which obviously can be gratifying. Ironically, because at the start of the month the moon is in Pisces and alongside Saturn, I do feel it's important to make sure that your home situation is working as efficiently as possible. Now, I'm sorry if that sounds very, very unsexy, because of course it surely is. But sometimes if things are just ordered, or we're decluttered, or all those drawers aren't just full of rubbish, it just makes the energy flow. So you could find yourself wanting to be a little bit more productive in that regard at the start of the month. But there are opportunities for fun and socializing, and particularly on the 9th, because by then, as Jupiter goes direct and Venus for you is in the best part of your solar horoscope in your opposite sign, the fact that the Sun aligns to Mercury and pours its energy into this planet suggests your more sparkly, effervescent and buzzy side will really shine. Yes, your charisma is going to glow brightly. The thing is, however, Libra, by the time of the full moon of the 12th, you could find yourself a little bit under demand and not quite sure who you should spend time with. Making us think of that old saying, we can't keep all of the people happy all of the time. And perhaps part of the scenario could be if you feel that someone is in some way perhaps denying you a little bit of space, even if they do want to spend time with you. So whether it is a romantic interest or your friends, or it's just the amount of involvements you have in personal hobbies and so forth, you might feel just a little bit of tension in trying to get the right balance between what you want and others expect of you. And that can provide a backdrop right at the heart of this month. That said, on the 14th, Mercury does move out of the sign of Aquarius and into Pisces. If there is a situation, perhaps to do with a matter that requires deep concentration, research, attention to detail, Mercury moving through Pisces can help you, but of course it's a very emotional sign, so you will need to be as objective as possible to really download its energy. What will help you is the Sun moves to the 6th house on the 18th. If a get fit plan has stalled from the start of the year, that New Year's resolution, this can give you the spur to get back on track. But also, what's going to happen is that Mercury will link with Mars from the 22nd to the 25th. And Mars does spend the first part of this month in retrograde, but it's still in a very authoritative part of your chart. So the fact that the Sun and Mercury have moved into your 6th house, that's the processes, but Mars can help you to still raise your profile, particularly from the 24th when he goes direct. If you have found that your professional situation has not been evolving quite as quickly as you would like, and especially from the 6th of January, it wouldn't be a complete surprise. Now you get the chance to really thrust forwards, particularly with the link to Mercury. So people can see that you have authority, but they can also see that you say what you say you will do, you will also deliver in a very precise way. Now the 28th does see a new moon, also in the sign of Pisces. So if you are feeling virtuous, you want to find some opportunities for extra healing. Pisces is very much about that, but also think about the physical as well as the spiritual domain. So if you have a spa day, up your walking, perhaps have some time out where you just really get some deep rest. All of that can be hugely therapeutic for you. Perhaps also consider a treatment session for a massage or homeopathy, something that can take a look at your situation in a very Piscean way, but has some real physical benefits, which for you is the 6th house. That new moon does square up to Jupiter in your sector of freedom. And if it does feel, despite the positive energies that have manifested in the sign of Pisces this month, particularly with Mercury coming into an exact conjunction with Saturn later in the month, if it does feel that other people are still expecting far too much from you, and most of all perhaps taking you for granted, it may be an opportunity with that new moon to set your boundaries a lot firmer, but also do something that's much more escapist and gets you away from some of those chores, obligations and demands, which could feel quite lowering if they are too onerous for you. Have a great February. Discover your personal natal horoscope for absolutely free, including the big three of the ascendant, sun and the moon, and the houses they're located in, as well as all the other planetary positions, by downloading your chart by clicking the link underneath this video. Or you can take advantage of my special star choice range, where you buy one horoscope and get the second horoscope free. Please see below for more for that too. So Scorpio, your February 2024 forecast begins with, on screen now, your traditional ruler Mars in your sister water sign of Cancer and still in retrograde. But the great news is that Mars is going to end that on the 24th. But if you have been feeling that you want to open up your life in some ways, but it hasn't really been happening, perhaps part of that is the retrograde, but also the activity in your 4th house, which is where your modern ruler is. And that's very much to do with the internal workings of our lives. Pluto can see us on the 4th house cusp. Consider things like home renovations, redecoration, moving altogether. Some people will want more space, other people will want to downsize. With Mercury in the mix, you could also in Aquarius be thinking or already working from home, but adapting to this new reality. But if it seems rather claustrophobic, Mars in your 9th house perhaps can prime you up to do some research amongst those more emotional and family strands about how you can break out, even if not this month, perhaps later this year. So some research around a vacation is certainly possible, but definitely some improvements or changes around where you live too. But as the month begins, the Sun arcs to Jupiter, the planet of opportunity, which for you starts this month like Mars in a retrograde, but the trine between the Sun and Mars is one of the most productive in astrology. So if you are thinking about raising finance for a property or looking to lease a new rental, that can give you the sense that things could progress, despite the fact that Jupiter starts this month in retrograde. Don't worry, your long-term financial circumstances can improve from the 4th when Jupiter goes direct, and it's going to be in this part of your situation through to the 9th of June. And of course, it has been limited by the anti-risk Saturn. That really was a feature of last year. 18th of August, 24th of December, they were in a square first 2 weeks of this year too. So if you are starting to feel as you go into this month a little more enterprising, it wouldn't be a complete surprise. but you can see there's a whole host of planets in the sign of Pisces, which shares your water triplicity too. First up, we have the moon very close to Saturn. Is there a rather delicate issue, perhaps around a relationship matter, that does need discussion? Because if so, right at the start of this month could be the time that this happens. And part of the reason for that is Venus the relator is in a very constructive alliance with Uranus the freedom lover. At the start of last month they clashed, and that could have led to some tensions if you did feel rather closed in, or perhaps someone was demanding too much of your attention, or a relationship hasn't been working very well. Therefore, the angle between Venus but also Neptune and the node, which can be magical despite that rather intense, serious combination of the moon and Saturn, suggests as they link, certainly in the case of Uranus, that could trigger a new way of looking at a situation that has been rather stuck. And although Mars is in that retrograde at the start of the month, it does forge a very stable alliance with Saturn. So in terms of your desire to manifest your talents and creativity, if you wanted to learn some new skills, Mars in the 9th house together with Saturn suggests you could be very hardworking, but also open to evolving. But that initial link between the moon and Saturn is one to be mindful of. But on the 4th, Venus moves beyond the conjunction between Neptune and the North Node and moves into the sign of Aries. But that backdrop between the North Node and Neptune will go on for the whole of this month. If you are lucky enough to be a creative, an artistic person, or you have friends who can really help you to trip the light fantastic, this could be at times a mesmerising month. But I think it's really going to come to life for you in the latter part of the month, once Mercury moves on the 14th and the Sun on the 18th into Pisces. Then the rather inner dynamic that's created by those Aquarian influences can make way for a much more gregarious and sociable dimension. Still, having said that, that combination between Neptune and the North Node is a very, very special one for you. So if you've ever thought that you could perhaps paint or enjoy photography, or you're a maker of any kind, or any other kind of activity which helps you to demonstrate your flair, do go for it right through February. However, I did mention that Venus is moving into the 6th, suggestion from the 4th that when it comes to practical responsibilities or even your work, a little bit of goodwill can be created by thoughtful gestures for sure. But that brings us to the full moon of the 12th, and it does see the Sun in that tender 4th house competing with the moon in a very visible part of your situation. If you're not feeling particularly in balance, it's going to be hard to disguise it, particularly as both positions, polarities, are intersected by Uranus, and Uranus in your sector of relating. So whether it's a home, family, or emotional relationship, or a professional tie that tends to be a bit unpredictable, or is going through a period of change, that can be a very dominating energy over the following 2 weeks of that full moon. But I mentioned before that with Mercury moving on the 14th, Mercury can be a bit tricky in the 4th house. We can tend to circulate thoughts around our mind and find it more difficult to express how we feel. Moving into the 5th, it's more mischievous, it's playful, it's demonstrative. You can find your sense of humour starting to revive, and that will be aided by the Sun's arrival on the 18th. A much more sociable dimension comes in, therefore, Scorpio, in the latter part of this month. And I think with your traditional ruler Mars going direct on the 24th, but also angling in an awesome way to Mercury, you might surprise yourself by that travel plan that you were perhaps musing about earlier in the month can suddenly now be ignited, and you may actually be talking to someone about heading off somewhere, and perhaps rather spontaneously. The new moon, which brings the cosmic curtain down on February for you, also has a lot of potential for uplift. But I feel it is important to understand that your modern ruler Pluto is going to be with you in this tender fourth house for a very long time. And if there are certain changes going on in your family life, your deepest emotions, or where you live, they're not going to be easy to resist. That's not how Pluto works. Sometimes Pluto will evolve things for us, whether we like it or not, but it actually can be for the good of us ultimately, but it's very hard to see that at the time. So even if you do have this interlude in the second half of February, which is much more interactive, playful, and fun, and that's great, just be aware that you need to take it back to how things feel. That's going to be a key part of your experience over the next coming years, and it is one that you do need to engage with in a wholesome way. If you've yet to watch your year 2025 deep dive video forecast, please see the link beneath this video. Discover your personal natal horoscope for absolutely free, including the big three of the ascendant, sun and the moon, and the houses they're located in, as well as all the other planetary positions, by downloading your chart by clicking the link underneath this video. Or you can take advantage of my special star choice range, where you buy one horoscope and get the second horoscope free. Please see below for more for that too. Hello Sagittarius, your February 2025 forecast. On the screen now, we can see that your ruler Jupiter continues its retrograde, but not for much longer. So the great news is that on the 4th, Jupiter goes direct, but also on the same day, Venus moves into your sister fire sign of Aries. Now, both those things are really excellent portents, but also right at the start of the month, the Sun in Aquarius, which shares characteristics of your sign, can be very independent-minded, loves freedom, can be very shrewd and spotting trends. Well, the Sun in Aquarius forges an ace link to Jupiter, a trine, one of astrology's best angles. So as you go into this month, the Sun, along with the planet of talk and thought, Mercury, and of course Pluto, are all in your third house. That's how you think, quick communications. Of course, Aquarius is an air sign. It can be very progressive, but that third house energy could see you looking at technology. If you have a website working on it, maybe you're going to have a greater connection to people immediately around you in your locality, groups, interests. Perhaps it is going to be someone you're going to have a connection with online, because Jupiter going direct in your sector of relating through to the 9th of June is a window of opportunity, but the link to the Sun at the start of this month suggests whether it is around business and some kind of collaborative project, a partnership, or reaching towards someone that you connect with, perhaps a business client that you just really have a rapport with. All of those things can spark from the bright energy of the Sun, but also Mercury in your third house. Venus going into Aries comes after a mesmeric connection with Neptune and the North Node. And to be honest, Neptune and the North Node in a conjunction through the spine of this month is probably the most potent secular influence. And if we think that this particular North Node cycle hasn't happened in the sign of Pisces for so very long, it really could see you with an opportunity to get the kind of home or family life that you really would like, that perhaps Neptune has been alluding to since 2012, but Saturn has been creating some resistance around since 2023. And indeed, right at the start of this month, you'll see the Moon and Saturn are very close together. So there could still be something around a family matter. Perhaps it's to do with the limitation of your home. perhaps your own emotions aren't quite as settled as they could be. But in terms of a more social interaction, it's looking very bright at the start of this month. Now, we are going to have on the 9th a cazimi between the Sun and Mercury. That's where they're in unison, and the power of the Sun, which obviously is the root of our life force, glows up the quick wits of Mercury in house 3, which has a kind of Gemini vibe to it. Your ability to share ideas in a very charismatic and buzzy and vibrant way is certainly going to be enhanced. If you are someone who's thinking about a new mode of transport, it's possible, particularly with Jupiter leaning into the Sun at the start of this month, you could decide to splash out to get what you really want. But some new technology could be in the mix for some people, or you could just have that very meaningful conversation. That said, by the 12th we have a full moon, and it's a full moon that really does accentuate the communicational axis in your chart. The Sun in the 3rd house is quick, fast communication. It's very restless. It's not very inclined to take our time. It's more of a response. It's a reactive energy. The other side of the heavens is more redolent of the energy of your sign, the moon in Leo. So that's about the big picture, but it's also about our desire for freedom, travel, movement, all the strands that are very much associated with you. But Uranus, which has been quite the disruptor since March 2019 full time, around just trying to get some kind of routine in your life, suggests that you could find yourself through the middle of this month feeling quite wired up. And the problem may be trying to direct your energy in a way which is grounded and gives you some kind of tangible result. Now, Uranus in the sign of Taurus can be about money, it can be about resources, but it can also be about how we value ourselves. If you are getting caught up in a situation where your desire to be very enthusiastic means that you're taking on more and more, but that's bending your ability to be very efficient, maybe that's what the full moon's asking you to do. Think, but also express what your boundary needs to be. But if you're also very bored in a routine job that really doesn't give you any personal stimulation or excitement, then maybe that's the area that you need to be thinking about changing. But on the 14th, Mercury moves out of Aquarius and into the sign of Pisces. Now, Mercury and Pisces are not natural friends, if you like, any more than Mercury in your sign is. I actually really like Mercury in Sagittarius. I feel the enthusiasm of your sign, together with the quick wits of communication, has more benefits than the detriment suggests. But in the sign of Pisces, which is very emotional and can be very subjective, the clarity that Mercury seeks is really diminuted. So you could find yourself feeling quite inward over the next few weeks, to be honest, particularly when the Sun joins up with Mercury, but also with, of course, Saturn, Neptune and the North Node. And really right through to when Neptune moves at the end of March and Saturn on the 26th of May, you're going to go through a key period for how you feel about things, but also the importance of your home, your family connections, your roots. If you're someone with a massive passion for genealogical research, that could be activated. If you really want to work from home rather than travelling, that may be something that you're going to try and make happen. But also, because your nature is to be very buoyant and investigative and adventurous, the more emotional dimension of your situation can be something that you resist. And Saturn, frankly, over the last couple of years has been pushing and prodding you to take note that just like everyone else, you do need to rest. You do need to give yourself time for your emotions to decompress. You need to accept at times that you're not indestructible, that you do have some vulnerabilities. Now, if you've done that, then actually there may have been a huge growth. You may have, for example, settled, got your own home. There may have been a child that's come along. There may have been some nurture developing in your situation, which has been gratifying. But if you are trying to do a deal on a property purchase or rental, the link between Mercury and also with Saturn that's going to occur this month certainly gives you a chance to be very serious minded about that. That's the 23rd to the 27th. But if there are some energies at the heart of your life which are not so cordial, maybe there's someone who doesn't tend to be very supportive, sometimes has cool or critical words to say, that can be a feature too. That said, Mars goes direct on the 24th and does link very well with Mercury. Mars is in the part of your chart very much to do with desire. If you are someone who wants to bring extra passion into your world in a sexual context, Mars going direct will certainly help through to the 18th of April. But seriously, Mars is linked to Mercury at this juncture of the month. If you are looking to raise some finance for a property issue, your motivation to have a good outcome can be very strong. As the month draws to a close, the new moon in your fourth house gives you a chance to reset your posture around how you feel about things, your environment. You may find yourself wanting to be nearer or deeper in nature, close to water, a more reflective part of the year. But there is a square with Jupiter. If there is someone on your horizon, celestially, who's making your pulse race, the enthusiasm can be very strong as the month comes to a close, but always take it back, Sagittarius, to how you feel. And that's really what Saturn's been asking you to work on the last couple of years, not just being very dynamic, very open and daring and enterprising. It's a fantastic set of influences that you have threaded through your very nature. But all of us need to, at times, be a little bit more conscious of being protective. And that's really the story towards the end of this month. If you've yet to watch your year 2025 deep dive forecast, please see the link beneath this video. Discover your personal natal horoscope for absolutely free, including the big three of the ascendant, sun and the moon, and the houses they're located in, as well as all the other planetary positions, by downloading your chart by clicking the link underneath this video. Or you can take advantage of my special star choice range, where you buy one horoscope and get the second horoscope free. Please see below for more for that too. Welcome Capricorn to your February 2025 forecast. On the screen now is your event chart right at the start of the month. As ever, we need to be mindful of the sun and the moon. The sun's in house 2, which, like your sign, Aquarius, is ruled by Saturn, but it's only co-ruled. Uranus, the planet of surprises, is its other ruler. But the moon is in the part of your situation to do with your everyday conversations, whereas the sun very much to do with your values, the foundations of your life, and perhaps also your everyday money. But I've got some terrific news for you as this month begins, because the sun angles to Jupiter in a particularly fortuitous way just as February begins. And yet you may be thinking, hold on Patrick, Jupiter has been retracing its steps for the last 4 months. Wouldn't that in some way make this less fortuitous? Well, you have a good point. It has been retracing its steps, but for you, in the part of your horoscope that's very much to do with practicalities, perhaps what Jupiter's retrograde there has done is asked you to be more mindful of your physical energy, particularly as last August on the 18th and last Christmas Eve on the 24th, and the first 2 weeks of this year, Jupiter was challenged by your traditional ruler Saturn. So it's possible during those periods that your vitality has actually been lower. So one of the great things about the start of this month and that link between the Sun and Jupiter is that I feel that you can start to feel more vibrant, and you can use that extra energy in a very constructive way. And that could be trying to find economies, having a little bit more enthusiasm for exercise, perhaps looking in a closer way about what you're cooking and eating. The second house is a very Tauran influence where the Sun is, but that also encourages us to get the best nutrients we can, and that feeds into your sense of well-being where Jupiter is too. But if you are looking for a job, Jupiter going direct on the 4th of this month and that link to the Sun can all be very good for you. But talking of your ruler Saturn, it does start this month in a very close link to the Moon. The Moon in the 3rd house can be bright, bubbly, perhaps not necessarily very emotional, and yet the host, Pisces, is very emotional at times. It's because for you, the overlay from your Sun is house 3. That can be about fast exchanges. But Saturn's very close to the Moon. And over the last couple of years, I feel that you may have experienced some challenges around communications, especially with those people immediately around you. Perhaps from nowhere, someone's challenged you about a point of view that in the past has never really been an issue. Or perhaps you felt a little more inhibited in terms of actually saying how you feel. Or perhaps there's been tensions with neighbours or siblings, or generally you've not felt quite as flexed in your body. There may have been some resistance around your ability to move freely. So this combination between the Moon and of Saturn at the start of this month, despite the upbeat vibe of the Sun and also Jupiter, could give you food for thought. But just be aware, there is a magical alliance at the other end of Pisces, where we have Neptune, the North Node, but also Venus in a trio of energies which suggest if there is something that you want to express that's incredibly important to you, whether it's music, poetry, a principle, whether you want to connect with someone you have a heartfelt connection to, the chances are you can express it despite that more resistant energies of Saturn. But I think what Saturn's asking you to do is to be utterly sincere. Now Venus is going to move on by the 4th into Aries, which is an interesting development, and I will share why shortly, but it doesn't change the fact that Neptune and the North Node are together for the whole of this month within 3 degrees. So if you are someone who's wanted to trip the light fantastic with your imagination or through film or photography or art, do believe that you have the right to express yourself. Don't let that more cautious energy of your ruler Saturn stop you from really saying how you feel. But back to Venus. It's interesting because Venus moving into the 4th house is a wonderful influence if we want to redecorate. We become much more conscious of the inner part of our world, and therefore the decorative side, Venus rules the sign of Libra, very much to do with presentation, and our immediate environment is the 4th house, could see you getting the colour charts out and finding ways to improve your abode. But also the 4th house can be about emotional relating. And that's interesting because we think of Aries as being fiery. Now Venus is technically debilitated in Aries, but I feel that you can use this to your advantage. If there has been a relationship which has felt stilted, this could be your chance to try to pick the right words and approaches to get the lines of communication flowing in a more peaceful and equitable way. So that can be a help to you. But by the 9th, the combination of the Sun and Mercury creates what's known as a Mercury cazimi. It's a superior conjunction because Mercury is not in retrograde, and essentially the Sun's superpower glows up. That quick wits of Mercury, if ever there was a time for you to come up with a stunning idea to improve your finances, it's going to be around then. But talking about finances, Capricorn, what about that full moon on the 12th? Because there may be part of you that could be very impulsive in week 2 when it comes to an item that you see that could prove to be hard to resist. Why is that? You can be very canny with resources. Well, it is because of the role of Uranus. So Uranus has been pushing even sensible you to just be a little bit more carefree when it comes to perhaps your romantic situation or things that you are attracted to. And because the full moon goes across the axis of the second, the Sun, and the 8th houses for the position of the moon in Leo, what we have here is the potential need to balance the books. So if you have been finding, like many of us, that the cost of living, increasing lending and mortgages and all the rest of it has made life challenging, that could come home to roost a little bit. But equally, Uranus could give you some kind of idea about how you could reconfigure and be more open to fresh ideas to improve your lot. But equally, there may be something that you do or someone that you do find to be very, very attractive. And when I say someone, the 2nd and 8th houses can be to do with lust as well. The 5th house can be the sector of chance or speculation. So you can see the flash, quick energy of Uranus could just trigger something that could prove very exciting. And you know, from the 14th, Mercury does speed things up, moving into Pisces. Not its best transit, it has to be said. But also from the 23rd to the 27th, it does apply to the position of Saturn, your ruler, but not before the Sun moves on the 18th to join with Mercury, but also with Saturn, Neptune and the North Node. So it's going to be a chatterbox second half of this month. Things are going to pick up speed in a very big way. It's going to be exciting, I feel, particularly with Mars going direct in your sector of relating on the 24th and angling to Mercury in a very productive way. If you have found from the 6th of January that there have been tensions around certain involvements, partly it's because you're being firmer about what you will not accept. Nothing wrong with that at all, but you may, if you're single, have also been more proactive in trying to seek out the person that would really make your heart race. But I think Mars going direct, the lovely link to the position of Mercury, and Mercury's applying to Saturn suggests if there is something delicate that does need talking through, perhaps it's a contractual matter, it's a good juncture to do so. But on the 28th, the last day of the month, we have a stunning new moon. But it's a new moon that actually squares up with Jupiter. But when the moon and Jupiter are squaring up, it's one of those squares which nominally can be challenging in astrology that actually can work very well. And I think that your desire to be much more interactive, perhaps much more physically active too, perhaps more nimble, expressing your ideas is really given a fantastic glow up as this month draws to a close. So the start of the month can be more complex. It can be a lot to do with finance, how you feel about yourself and so forth. But there is going to be an opportunity for you to find your voice. And it's all about directing your ideas in a way which gives you a sense of fulfillment. But perhaps also it can be a time when you learn or consume new information that can be very helpful to you too. Have a great February, Capricorn. If you've yet to watch your year 2025 deep dive video forecast, please see the link below for more. Discover your personal natal horoscope for absolutely free, including the big three of the ascendant, sun and the moon and the houses they're located in, as well as all the other planetary positions, by downloading your chart by clicking the link underneath this video. Or you can take advantage of my special star choice range where you buy one horoscope and get the second horoscope free. Please see below for more for that too. Welcome Aquarius to your February 2025 horoscope forecast. On the screen now is your event chart right at the start of the month and always influential. Now, Jupiter in astrology is the planet of fortune. In traditional astrology, it was known as the greater benefic, but it has been retracing its steps in the part of your chart to do with speculation, to do with fun, to do with romance for the last 4 months. But right at the start of February, it's forging an awesome link to the sun. In astrology, the sun linking to Jupiter in a trine is as good as it gets. So although Jupiter starts this month just marginally in retrograde, it forges that very reassuring alliance, but by the 4th, it's going to go direct. But on the same day, Venus, the planet of relating, moves into a fantastic part of your chart, the 3rd house. Your natural communicational skills can really glow up, therefore, right at the start of this month. But what about the cluster of energy in the sign of Pisces? Because for you, that's house 2. And right at the start of the month, the moon is very close to your traditional ruler of Saturn. Now, Saturn has quite the reputation, and it is true that at the start of this month, whilst the sun's angle to Jupiter can create a sense of hope and positivity, what the moon's conjunction with Saturn is asking you to do is make sure you keep your feet on terra firma, to not get too swept away. But at the other end of the sign of Pisces is Venus initially, before she moves into Aries, and she's forging a quite magical alliance to Neptune, the planet of dreams, but also to the North Node. Now that could prove to be very beneficial for you. So although there is some constraint, perhaps just in terms of how you feel with the moon's combination to Saturn, that energy at the end of the sign of Pisces looks very hopeful. Now once Venus moves on, we're still going to have the conjunction between Neptune and the North Node right through the back of the month of February. Now February is a month that for you, it's obviously an Aquarius month through to the middle of it when the sun moves into the sign of Pisces. It can be a month when you're starting to show people just how talented but also individual you can be. And you do get some extra help and assistance at the start of this month. And no, it's not just Pluto, it's Mercury. Mercury is the ruler of the 2nd decan of the sign of Aquarius, and some astrologers, including myself, feel that Mercury is accidentally exalted in the sign of Aquarius. So at the start of the month, the Sun and Mercury are going to be in a very tight alliance. So it's not just your enthusiasm that's going to be to the fore, it's your ability to think quickly on your feet. You can be a very progressive person, but also you're someone with a great appreciation of tradition. Therefore, there's a duality in your sign. So the fact that the Sun in Aquarius is in a semi-sextile to both the moon but also your traditional ruler Saturn at the very start of this month helps to offset Saturn's more limiting energies to the moon alone. So in other words, if you're dynamic with fresh ideas but your delivery is very thorough, steady and efficient, that can gain plaudits. So there's a lot to like at the start of this month. In fact, by the 9th, the Sun and Mercury come together in what's known as a cazimi. Well, the Sun is at the heart of our whole existence, but Mercury, which is about those fast communications, is given extra radiance and warmth by the power of the Sun, and that can give you more self-confidence to express yourself with conviction and authority. So truly exciting stuff, and we're not even thinking about Pluto because, of course, as soon as Venus moves into Aries on the 4th, it's linking back to Pluto in your sign, which returns to Aquarius for its third pass from the 19th of November and will be in Aquarius through to 2043 initially, before going into Pisces and then back into Aquarius, back into Pisces 244. So it's going to be a long old time. But that link between Pluto and Venus that starts to develop from the 4th means that your ability to express yourself with conviction but also charm is going to be turned up to max. Wow, this is sounding really exciting, Aquarius. What's not to like? Well, your modern ruler Uranus has been a mischief maker over the last few years, particularly around home, family and emotional issues, where its disruptive influence has been manifest. And when we have the full moon on the 12th in your opposite sign, it's possible that someone may feel that you're being too single-minded, too focused on whatever it is that you're invested in or excited about, whether it is a project, a new job, perhaps someone who's really taking your fancy. There may be someone around you who's a bit put out by that, but their energy can come in a sudden way and it could be unsettling. Sometimes in life, we have to be very single-minded in order to seize the golden prize. And that's really what starts to develop for you as soon as the 14th, when Mercury makes the transition from Aquarius into Pisces. Technically not its best location, but it is going to forge an alliance with your traditional ruler from the 23rd to the 27th. So if you are working very hard on something that does require flair, passion, enthusiasm, but also for you to go through the steps in a very systematic and reliable way, you can get your reward as the month goes on. Not least from the 18th. Pisces is where the Sun moves to then, and you can start to see the foundations of your world get stronger, because over the last couple of years Saturn has tested things, possibly financially, perhaps in terms of your self-worth and personal value. But the Sun moving to join up with Mercury, but also Saturn, Neptune and the North Node, suggests that something's coming back to you. It could be a karmic reward for a lot of hard work, a lot of investment, a lot of sacrifice that you've invested over a long period of time can come back to you as this month goes on. Now, your stamina could have been boosted by Mars inverting back into Cancer on the 6th of January, because the 6th house with Mars can actually be very self-sacrificing. Mars in Leo likes attention. I'm here, everybody, I'm here. Jose Mourinho, the football manager, Aquarius, Mars in Leo. However, Mars inverting into the sign of Cancer can be much more focused in a nurturing way, Cancer, on providing support, potentially through food distribution, perhaps through health services, any kind of practical role which helps other people, not through being servile, but assists, provides a service. And Mars has helped you, therefore, in the sign of Cancer to deal with the need for recognition, but understand that it is about giving something to a situation. But Mars's retrograde could also have seen you at times feeling a little weary. Well, the great news is that Mars angles brilliantly to Mercury and goes direct on the 24th. Then that's augmented by the new moon as the month draws to a close. And the only thing to tell you really is it squares up with Jupiter, that planet that we started the story of this month about. But that square gives you a chance to feel quite joyous if something starts to work for you. It's just saying to you, if some good news does come in, try to maintain a degree of equilibrium. Or if you do have some money come in, however tempting it is to splash out and be very free and easy with your resources, try to resist that a bit. But for some Aquarius people, the square with that new moon could prove to be profoundly fortunate, either romantically or financially, as long as the expectation and is not beyond the realms of possibility, but also the industry is maximized right through the month. So a very, very positive month to work hard, have self-belief, be single-minded, but also not get too swept away by the conjunction between Neptune and the North Node, but something karmically, after a couple of tough old years financially, can come back to you. If you've yet to watch your year 2025 deep dive video forecast, please see the link beneath this video. Have a great February. Discover your personal natal horoscope for absolutely free, including the big three of the ascendant, sun and the moon, and the houses they're located in, as well as all the other planetary positions, by downloading your chart by clicking the link underneath this video. Or you can take advantage of my special star choice range, where you buy one horoscope and get the second horoscope free. Please see below for more for that too. Welcome Pisces to your February 2025 horoscope forecast. On the screen now is your event chart right at the start of the month. As ever, we need to be mindful of the sun and the moon, but also your ruling planets. You have two: Jupiter, your traditional ruler, and Neptune as well. Now, Jupiter has been retracing its steps for the last 4 months. When Jupiter is in retrograde, it can slow things down. It's said to be the planet of fortune, but it also, through your sign, is very much about ascending to the highest possible version of ourselves from a more spiritual dimension. Being in the fourth house, that can be to do with homes, properties, but also our inner world and anything to do with family. So that may be an area that you've been thinking and reflecting upon in a very powerful way during the retrograde. But Jupiter starts this month in a stunning alliance to the Sun in Aquarius, which can be a bit more detached. It's an air sign, maybe a bit logical, but for you it's house 12. It's a place in the Sun's journey when we can pause. You may find yourself, therefore, as you go into this month, as the Sun links to Jupiter, actually really learning a lot about what your true and deepest needs are. So it can be a moment of opportunity. And when Jupiter goes direct on the 4th, something that has just been stuck a little bit can be released. And it could be around how you feel about something. Perhaps it's to do with a past connection that's no longer in your life. You may feel particularly nostalgic at the very start of this month. But also, of course, Pluto has moved full-time into Aquarius now. And also Mercury's there at the start of the month, suggesting that you may just be a little bit less outgoing and interactive with people as February begins. But what about Neptune, your other ruler? Well, that's forging a magical link to the North Node. Back in your sign, the true North Node, from the 11th of January in America and late on the 10th of January in the UK. Now, the North Node is going to be with you through to the end of July 2026. And it can bring some karmic rewards to you. And its link with Neptune, but also Venus at the start of this month, suggests you shouldn't underestimate, even if you're going through this deep stuff, thinking very carefully about some of your roots, your past history, some people who are no longer with you. You could find yourself being deeply analytical, but that combination gives you a mystique that could draw someone to you in a very powerful way. Also, the moon's in your sign as this month begins, and that can make you a bit more single-minded. It's also very close to stern Saturn, which has been asking you over the last 2 years to strip out of your life anything which is not truly essential, and it may not have always been a particularly easy journey. However, both the moon and Saturn link back to the sun in a very productive semi-sextile. So what you're bringing into your world in terms of your instincts, anything to do with the reflection you're going through, maybe to do with a little bit of chosen isolation, that downtime can actually feed and prime up the parts of your nature which can be very, very creative. And if you're in any way someone who has talents that you want to manifest as the month goes on, you're going to get a huge opportunity to do that. But I think one area that could be more challenging may be around your work, because the Sun and Mercury come into a conjunction, a cazimi on the 9th, which in itself could give you a stunning moment of extra insight, but it may be more to do with the practical dimension of life. And maybe if you haven't been quite as much in touch with other people, that combination can push you to do some practical research, find out information, take soundings, especially if you're working in an environment which you don't feel is very inclusive. Or it may be nothing to do with work. It may be the community you live in. It may be a group of friends that you've associated with. It may even be around family life. But in some way or another, if you do feel detached, withdrawn, or cut off from others at the start of this month, see it as an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you to understand your deepest needs in a much more profound way, because on the 4th, firstly, Jupiter goes direct, but also Venus moves out of your sign and into Aries. Technically debilitated, but I can assure you, over the next 28 days or so, your finances can have a really significant upturn. Also, if you did set yourself the target to be a little bit more disciplined around what you ate and drank at the turn of the year, with a New Year's resolution, just telling you that Venus could tempt you, because Venus in the 2nd house can certainly make us very appreciative of calorific goodies. But seriously, by the 12th, the full moon occurs across the axis of the moon, house 6, the practical dimension, 12th, the psychological area. And if, especially in a professional environment, there is a rather toxic environment, you're not really sure that you can absolutely rely or trust certain individuals, the fact that Uranus, the planet of surprises, but also the planet of rebellion, is in your 3rd house, which is where it's been pushing you to find your voice since March 2019 full time, that intersects with both the moon and the sun position. Now, full moon is when the sun and the moon are not on good terms. If we think about it, the sun's about thrust, the moon is more about receptiveness. So the moon in Leo can be very proud, the sun in Aquarius very detached, but along comes Uranus to in some way cut in an incisive way, and there could be a major revelation. And it's possible that if you feel someone's being unkind or unfair, particularly from the 14th, when Mercury, the planet of talk and thought, moves into your sign, that you're going to start to feel more confident about saying how you feel. So if you do start this month feeling rather tender, maybe even all the way to vulnerable, do understand that it's helping you to guide you towards what's truly right for you. And that will make more and more sense from the 18th, when the sun absolutely powers into your sign. Your physical vitality will leap. You're also on the 24th having Mars, the planet of thrust, which is in a great location for you all month, but in retrograde until then. That goes direct, but links back to Mercury, finding its feet in your sign. Mercury does align with Saturn in your sign from the 23rd to the 27th. It's possible that you're going to surprise someone with the force of your argument, but also the precision of the way you deliver your message. You have a reputation, rightly or wrongly, as being a dreamer. Certainly can be very, very spiritually inclined, hugely imaginative, and at times you can find yourself daydreaming or caught up in tripping the light fantastic, but that's part of what makes you extremely special. But you're going to find that if someone, as you see it, is dishonest or disloyal or two-faced or doesn't back you up when you've been very sacrificing to the cause, you're going to find with Mercury, the Sun and Mars all collaborating so well together in the second half of this month, and then as the month comes to a close, a glorious new moon in your sign, you are going to express yourself with great precision, but you're going to be very penetrative about how you say something. But you could also use quite a lot of enthusiasm and vigor and passion to say how you feel. And whoever thought that perhaps you were someone that maybe they could take for granted or just assume that you'd always be there in the way you have in the past, is in for a big surprise as this month draws to a close. So if you're in a situation at the start of February, Pisces, that's not working for you, but you're not quite sure what to do know by the end of the month, you're going to have a much greater sense of conviction. Your energy will be up. There's going to be more thrust. You won't be spinning around with a sense of uncertainty. I feel that you will gain traction and it's going to be very exciting, and people are going to coalesce around you, recognizing just what drive but also what talents you've got to share, and that can bring some rewards your way, particularly with Venus's help in that second house of everyday money. I hope you have a great month, Pisces. If you've yet to watch your deep dive forecast for year 2025, please see the link beneath this video. Discover your personal natal horoscope for absolutely free, including the big three of the ascendant, sun and the moon, and the houses they're located in, as well as all the other planetary positions, by downloading your chart by clicking the link underneath this video. Or you can take advantage of my special star choice range, where you buy one horoscope and get the second horoscope free. Please see below for more for that too.